Yes, indeed. This is the all-new 2022 Kia Carnival, which means Carnival? Carnival. I like Carnival. Which means that the minivan queen is back and that I have now officially driven every member of the minivan segment that are for sale in Canada in 2021. And let me tell you, after having done that and finishing off with this one, minivans, what we know as minivans, have changed dramatically just over the last decade. Yeah, sure. We went from about 8, 10 models to now only 4, but that's just one thing. What leads me to say that is because, well, it has a lot to do with this one. Because the Kia Carnival doesn't want to be considered a minivan. I mean, I forget, it's a LUV, I forget what it stands for, luxury utility vehicle, I think is what it is, which is actually not that far off from reality, because what Kia wants you to think of its Carnival is that it is a luxury vehicle, a luxury sedan that happens to be able to hold 7 or 8 passengers and a lot of gear. There are a lot of things to say about the Carnival. So we're gonna have to do the walk around. Apologies, and then take it for a spin. But I can tell you right now, from where I stand, this is easily the most surprising member of the minivan segment available for sale. But it's not surprising at the same time. I'll touch on that in a number of ways, probably a number of times over the next few minutes. So let's get on with it. Of the many ways it surprises, it's pricing, but that's not a surprise. And I'm going to repeat this because it happens to be absolutely true. Value. Kia understands value and understands that the average consumer, the average family wants more for their money, and Kia always delivers. Base price for the Kia Carnival in the US is $32,100. It's $34,495 for an LX in Canada. The SX Prestige, which is a top trim model in the US, is $46,100. And the SX, just plain old SX, is $48,295 in Canada. And that happens to be the model you see here. This is an SX, and I can tell you right now, and I'll repeat this too, this is not the minivan you want to buy. So it's actually going to be less expensive than that. I'll tell you. Okay, so here we go. The LX, the base model, okay, comes with an 8-inch display, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, but that's not really the interesting version. I'm telling you right now, the best one to get is the LX Plus. Because not only for $37,995 do you get wireless charging, power doors, all 3, side ones and the rear, heated seats and steering wheel, but at $37,995, it's $1,000, at least $1,000 less expensive than a base Chrysler Grand Caravan that rides on hubcaps. Think about that. EX Plus is interesting. That's when you start to get into the 12.3-inch, twin 12.3-inch display screens. I'll show those to you in a few moments. And if you want luxury, in my opinion, and usefulness, that's the version to get. So the SX, well, you get the second row VIP lounge seats. I'll show them to you in a few moments. Leather, dual sunroof, and it's the only version that's a 7-passenger. Let's do that tour. All right, so power hatch, as I mentioned, LX Plus and up. Okay, so when the seat, the third row seat is out, you get a total of 1,130 some odd liters of available space, which makes it the roomiest among all minivans. But to be frank, I mean, with the way the pivots are set up and the hinges, it doesn't really matter. When should you remove the second row seats, which are removable in all versions except the SX? You get, I forget what, 4,000 liters of space. It's enormous. I don't have the actual spec from behind the second row, but I'm going to assume that it looks like about 2,500 liters, which puts it right smack in the middle of the average of the segment. Door opening is not that bad. It's I'd say, again, average. I think the Sienna might give you a hair more. I might be a little bit wrong about that, but nevertheless, I mean, that's fairly big opening. Okay, this is where it gets complicated, and if it's not out yet, it will be out soon. Our comparison review of all the minivans. These are those VIP lounge seats. They are extremely heavy. They are also, I think you can see that. You see that? Heated, cooled, and power operated. That's right. I'm gonna guess these seats must weigh at least 200 pounds and change each. But the mechanical things about it, okay, is that they actually do slide forward and backward, so that's important. Only it and the Sienna will give you massive amount of travel fore and aft, which can be very useful. And you can also move the seats closer together with this. Okay, so I'm gonna show this to you. When you move it to the side like that, that's the only way you can push the seat. It's so heavy, I can't even do it with one hand. That's the problem. Oh, sorry about the camera shaking, but it's a lot of work to get it to go backwards. The reason is because the trim here, which is in my shadow, is so wide. Doesn't cut in on storage space, but it's so wide that I can't even move it forward. I'm afraid I'm gonna break the handle. But visibility is nice. Obviously, you got shades. There's loads of room when you do slide the seats all the way back. And that's the only way you'll be able to experience the full VIP lounge setup. Again, that will be in the comparison test video. Up front. Now this is what's another surprise, but it isn't a surprise because Kia is the way everything comes together. The effort and the detail, the finishes, the surfaces. It looks fantastically premium. It is really, really nice. I mean, look, who does this for a speaker grill? Just because, right? Same with the dashboard, right? Who does that? Only Kia. Only Kia would bother. And then, well, actually, I went too fast here. I'm gonna start it up. And here is the 12.3-inch twin screen setup that you get from the EX Plus and on. So, I mean, look, no other minivan offers you anything close to this. This is absolutely premium, it's tech, and it just keeps going and going. The whole of the display of the HVAC down here is superb in the way it works. The buttons, the settings, it's very tactile. There's no haptic feedback per se, but they work really, really well. Down here, your drive modes, which are and aren't important. And then you have your typical, comfort bar, I suppose, that you'd get in a lot of Kia products with the cooled seats, heated steering wheel, and your various cameras. Speaking of various cameras, we can just work the menus. This works beautifully well. There's your passenger view button, which I think is only available in the SX, but in my opinion, it's quasi-useless. I mean, you could just do a shoulder check, and you're fine. What do I want to do? I can't get it. It's so difficult to work through the phone. But look, everything works beautifully well. It's set up. It's superb. It's surprising, but it isn't at the same time again. Visibility is really, really good as well. I mean, the way that the screen is integrated, it's actually reasonably low, but there is a little bit of a problem with that. I'll tell you in a moment. You got a nice little piece of glass right there that you can see out of. The only issue is the driving position. Now, I'm in the lowest setting, and the steering wheel has to be, well, tilted upwards in order to give me a good grip. But if I lower it to get a better grip, see, I lose most of the gauges there. Now, that's kind of a bug, but you can work around it. Anyhow, this is memory seats, your buttons for your power doors if you need to know that, lane keep, and all kinds of active safety features. Oh, a storage. This is a good storage. There's your wireless charger right there. This is decent. This is actually full of audio equipment that the battery died. Here are your settings. So for your VIP lounge setup, you can move the seat, the passenger seat forward and all that. More USB ports. It is absolutely loaded. And for what, $48,000, it's incredible. And when you go for a drive, same thing. It's amazing. Here we go. So as we carry on with the surprises that aren't surprises, I mean, we've mentioned pricing. There is a ton of value and equipment built into this van. The design, which I didn't actually really talk about because there's so much more to say about everything else in the van. I mean, it looks like nothing else, and the more you stare at it, the more you appreciate what the Kia designers were going for. I mean, it looks absolutely premium, totally high-end, obviously, with an SX and maybe one or two slightly lower trims. You do get full LED lights and everything. It just looks superb. It is an impressively attractive minivan. So you got your styling, you got your value, and then the one and the biggest surprise for me is the driving experience. I will have driven almost all of Kia's most modern vehicles, and it's generally good, but this is absolutely really, really good. And I keep coming back to that because I wasn't expecting it to be so good. I will, the comparison video will give you a little bit more of an idea when it comes to the Odyssey, the Pacifica, and the Sienna. But just if we concentrate and focus on the Carnival, the word that comes up is refinement. This van is docile, it's comfortable, it's cosseting. The way the chassis is tuned, the way it's set up, it gives you just enough damping. That was a pretty big hole. Just enough damping to remain, civilized or serene or, normal in the van as you drive, even on my horrible Greater Montreal area roads. I've done a lot of driving very recently with the van, and it continues to impress me how comfortable this van is. Comfortable, yes, but it still handles really, really well. I mean, the 19-inch tires and wheels, 55 profile tires. I expected that to be a little bit of an issue, but it isn't really an issue. It does give you maybe a semblance, the image or the illusion that the van actually responds better to your steering, braking, and handling overall. So I'm guessing with the 17-inch wheels, which come with the LX, the ride quality is going to be even smoother than this. But the 19s, absolutely, in fact, acceptable. And that applies to just about everything else. I mean, their steering is fine. There's a little bit of, I don't want to say loose, on center play, as per. I mean, but not unusual for a minivan. Brake pedal feel is quite nice, actually. Better, again, than I expected. I mean, the overall takeaway from the drive is refinement. I mean, it's just about on par with the best in the segment. Again, the surprise. And it goes on. I mean, the powertrain, the 3.5-liter V6, 8-speed automatic transmission. I mean, combined, they're another match made in heaven. If I was to find a fault with the powertrain, specifically in the way it operates, I mean, when I come to a full stop and then go, the 8-speed will occasionally hunt between 1 and 2, first and second gears. But that's something that a lot of transmission, or an issue, if you will, a lot of transmissions have. So I can't fault it for that specifically. But I can say there are two issues-ish, I guess, with the minivan. One is the fact that it's not available all-wheel drive. Two of its competitors offer it. It is definitely an advantage, a huge plus if you live in Canada or the northern US states. But then when you take into account how much cheaper this van is compared to the competition, I mean, we're talking about $7,000 to $10,000 cheaper. I mean, you have a heck of a budget for some really, really good winter tires. So if you live in a populated urban area that is plowed in the winter, might not be an issue at all. The other one, though, creeps up, and that's fuel consumption. Kia, on paper, wants you to believe that you'll be able to average about 10.5 liters per 100 kilometers in mixed driving. The reality is that the city rating of 12 liters per 100 kilometers is what you will get. In the winter, snowy, a lot more urban driving, it's going to creep up towards 13. And if you want to exploit and find out what the 290 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque can do, well, it'll definitely keep going up and up and up. But seriously, that 12.5 liters per 100 kilometers, which we're averaging about 12.2 at the moment, or I am averaging, I should say, is about on par with what you can expect with the Honda Odyssey. So it's not a terrible flaw. It's certainly better than what you'll get in a Chrysler Pacifica, but it's almost twice as much as what your Sienna all-wheel drive will consume. So less expensive, consumes more fuel. Does that kind of cancel itself out, all-wheel drive? In that respect, it makes this a slightly more difficult minivan to consider. Sorry. I mentioned this SX is not the version you want, because all of the other versions have 8 seating for 8. I got this. And the second row seats are removable, whereas these, even if they were, you'd need a forklift to get them out. And you can save a considerable amount of money, have all the features and the comfort, and do without, that silly VIP lounge seating setup, which I can't even see myself being a passenger in a vehicle and lounging as we drive somewhere. But definitely drive somewhere is something that could be easily done in this van. In conclusion, what creeps up also for a number of these Kia and Hyundai products is the medium to long-term reliability. And as I've been doing a lot of driving with this van, there's a rattle if you hear it. That's a baby seat, nothing to do with the van. But there's a lot of wind noise, even at 80 kilometers an hour. And that kind of pokes the fact that some corners have to be cut in order to get all of this for so little money. Which leads me to think that reliability, long-term build quality won't be as good as what you can expect from Toyota and Honda. But you do pay a heck of a lot less money. I can absolutely understand why anyone would get this van for the style and the content, even if you get an LX Plus or an EX, whatever, and overlook the others. But I wouldn't sign on for a very long time. Beyond 4 years seems a little iffy for me. Anyhow, the bottom line is that this is a spectacular, really good, hugely luxurious and refined minivan. But it might not be the best one in the segment.